안녕하세요. 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 I was told that this was where all the greatest patriots of this nation of South Korea has gathered. Am I correct in that assumption? 맞습니까? 잘 안 들립니다. 맞습니까? Today, we're celebrating the 77th anniversary of Korean liberation. Day that encapsulated the hopes and the dreams of our ancestors. That went all the way back to the founding vision of the Korean people in the Tangun mythology. We are based upon the 홍익인간 ideal. We were mandated by heaven to build a model nation that could be the inspiration for all of humanity. Our people has a 5,000-year history, and throughout the entirety of that history, we have tried to uphold the 홍익인간 ideal in the tumultuous period of the 20th century, where tremendous changes were happening around the world, especially imposed by Western nations, Western powers. Korea was also swept up into that swarm. When Korea was annexed by the Japanese Empire, and we lost our identity and our future, the one philosophy, one ideal that held the Korean people together, whether they were on the peninsula or abroad, was the 홍익인간 ideal and the promise of building a model nation that can be the inspiration of all humanity. I am proud to say that my father and my father's family is intimately tied to that legacy. For my great-granduncle was one of the key inspiration behind the creation of the Korean Declaration of Independence that marked the Samil independence movement. For what was the aspiration of the Samil independence movement? It was to create a Western-style nation that had the 홍익인간 ideal, so that it can be a nation that can inspire not only all of Asia, but the rest of the world. Have you read the Declaration of Independence of the Samil movement? Yes or no? 읽었어요? 안 읽었어요? 여기 있는 젊은 사람들은 읽어봤어요? I recommend that you read it because it captures the 정성 of the 홍익인간 ideal. The founders of that declaration had a vision that a united Korea, an independent Korea that uplifted the ideals of 홍익인간 would even work with the very nation that oppressed their own people, Japan. 정신, 정성 allowed the founders of that declaration to dream a greater dream than just the national identity, but a dream for the entirety of the human race. Set an example for the world of what peace could look like, of what peace could be. We are celebrating that vision and that ideal on this day today, because that vision and that hope was what marked the aspirations of the hope of our people in 1945 upon liberation. But what happened to that dream? Instead of holding on to that uniquely Korean dream, we adopted the very frameworks of division that had basically encapsulated the Western world, and it was imposed upon the Korean people. 1945, which should have been a tremendous year of hope and aspiration for the Korean people, became the day of our devastation, where the Korean Peninsula was swept up within the global conflict, ideological conflict between democracy of the free world and communism. From 45 to 48, still the Korean people held on to that dream, especially here in the South. Efforts were made by the Korean people to engage the North and have Kim Il-sung open up that country for open elections for the entirety of the peninsula, as mandated by the United Nations. However, that did not come to pass. Yet, that dream never died. That dream exists in the DNA of every Korean people, here and abroad. Amen? 맞습니까? 잘 안 들려요. 맞습니까? As long as we hold on to that dream, regardless of what nation, what government, whatever institution that divides the Korean family. As long as we hold on to that dream shall never die. 맞아요! I can't hear 맞아요! There is something that is stirring here in this nation of Korea.
지금
Like a
여러분들을 통해서
beginning of a tremendous storm that will follow and basically sweep across this land, bringing about a transformation never imagined by those who do not have an imagination. But today, I was told that I was going to speak in front of the patriots of Korea that never allowed the dream of Honggingan ideal to create a model nation, that never allowed that dream to die. Am I right? 맞습니까? 잘 안 들려요. 맞습니까? 맞습니까? 이쪽은 맞습니까? 그쪽은 맞습니까? 잘 안 들려요. 맞습니까? 거기. 오. 이쪽도 한번 해보죠. 맞습니까? 맞습니까? 이쪽이 더 세요. 한 번 더. 맞습니까? 여기 중간은 맞습니까? 이쪽이 조금 더 셉니다. 맞습니까? 맞습니까? This day has that significance for the Korean people because of our national aspiration to create a model nation that can be an inspiration for all. What is happening in the world today? Many have told me when I started the unification movement more than 10 years back that the Korean people are not interested in unification. They're interested on many other issues beyond unification. That unification will not happen in my lifetime. Yet when I started this movement for unification, 2 weeks later, Kim Jong-il died. Shortly thereafter, the geopolitical circumstances in the world was such where unification constantly came upon the national agenda of South Korea and North Korea. So there were larger forces at play that were pushing the unification agenda. Like I challenged all of you, the dream of unification never died in me or never died in my family. For our DNA and our bone marrow is tied to this vision and this ideal. So even though I was told that no one else was interested in the Korean unification, I knew, based upon my identity as a Korean and the aspiration of the Korean people that inspired generations of my family, I knew that that DNA existed in every Korean, not only here in Korea, but in North Korea and around the world. All that was needed was a vision and a catalyst that drives that momentum forward and reawaken the already existing seed of Honggingan in every Korean around the world. 그 Honggingan seed 있어요 없어요? 있어요 없어요? 있어요 없어요? 그쪽은 있어요 없어요? 잘 안 들립니다. 그 있어요 없어요? 있어요 없어요? 이쪽은 있어요 없어요? We all have that DNA, that aspiration to create the greatest nation that can be the inspiration for all. Look what's happening in the world today to drive this vision forward and make this a greater possibility than ever before. One of the things I want you to understand is that unification will not happen from intergovernmental negotiation from the South and the North, nor any negotiation of any of the superpowers around us. That paradigm has been tried for 8 decades and it has completely failed over and over and over again. I believe it was Einstein who said, the sign of insanity is to do the same thing and hope for a different outcome. That is why we need to understand clearly that unification is going to be realized through something different than intergovernment negotiations for unification. But like I said, there is something stirring upon this land that is turning into something bigger and bigger and bigger and sweeping across this peninsula and the rest of the world. The geopolitical circumstance of today of the rise of statist powers that violate fundamental human rights and freedoms and even do not recognize the rights of their neighbors is on the rise, reminding us that there are larger, greater threats on the horizon. The world once again is being divided between Western democracies that advocate fundamental freedoms and human rights and these statist powers that still hold on to the idea that the almighty state determines what human rights are. That is why it is more important than ever that every Western democratic nation recognize where true freedom and where true human rights come from. As a student of history, one should realize that the idea of fundamental human rights and freedoms is a modern phenomenon. It did not exist through the entirety of human history. The nation that fathered those ideas is the United States of America. And as a student of American history, more than the Constitution, the most important document in America's founding is the Declaration of Independence. Yeah. Because it states the premise upon which, the principles upon which this new republic shall be built. The most pregnant phrase that has been quoted around the world is the second paragraph of the Declaration, where it is said, which is the basis upon which all Western democracies are formed, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, of which life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is guaranteed. In other words, our rights do not come from government or nation. It comes from God. The second aspect of the Declaration is this, that the purpose of government is to make sure that those rights given to us by our Creator is maintained by any government that is formed in this land. For many people who do not live in America, they always wonder, why is there the Second Amendment in the Constitution? Well, that is directly tied to the third component of the Declaration, where they basically tell the American people, if a government is formed that abridges those rights and freedoms, that it is your duty to get rid of that government and build a new one that makes sure that those rights and freedoms are maintained. That is why, although America had these high ideals, America was able to maintain those freedoms and rights for their citizens. This understanding and this truth is all the more important today in the environment in which we live today, with the rise of statist regimes. The Korean dream envisions a nation rooted in the Hongingad ideal that will uphold fundamental freedoms and human rights. Therefore, it has to be a nation that is built upon God's sovereignty. Amen. 맞습니까? My father created a new word. It's called 아주. 한번 해보자요. 아주.
아주라고 해보십시오.
Means I will own it. We have to build a new nation based upon God's sovereignty. Yes or no? 아이고. 여기 한번 들어보자. 아주. 오, 여기 한번 들어보자. 아주. 여기 지도자는 다 앉고 있잖아요. 한 번 더 해보자요. 아주. It has to be a nation that upholds the highest virtues and ideals of the Western democracies, that can inspire the world. It has to be a nation that absolutely guarantees fundamental freedoms and human rights, and therefore it has to be a nation that is built on the ideal of God's sovereignty. 아니에요? 아주. Oh. That is why this day is so important for us as the Korean people. It reminds us of what still needs to be fulfilled. That is why on this very day, 3 years from now, we plan to shake this peninsula shake this region and shake the world with the voices of tens of millions of Koreans that have re-sparked the Korean dream that had lain dormant within them. 그렇게 할 수 있어요! 그렇게 할 수 있어요! Then, I never leave without a challenge. For this is a sacred moment in the history of our people where we are bringing alive the dormant ideal and vision and destiny of the Korean people in the Hongikad ideal to create an ideal nation. This is just the beginning. You all should become the seeds that spread this vision and spark a reawakening in that DNA of your Korean neighbors who might not have had that spark ignited within them. So those of you who are committed to that task, over the next 3 years, let us stand. 일어나세요, 일어나세요, 일어나세요. Just like a seed coming up from the ground. Will you become the owner of the Korean dream and bring a transformation to this land where the long lost hope dream of creating a model nation can be realized? Yes or no? 주인이 될 수 있어요. 주인이 될 수 있어요. May God bless you and your families. Thank you very much.
하나님의 축복이 여러분과 여러분 가정에 함께하기를 바랍니다. 감사합니다.